Counting values within cases for questionnaire or survey based on Likert scale in both Excel and SPSS. Counting values within cases in Excel for questionnaire or a survey that is based on Likert scale. Here in this Excel sheet, I had inserted a data taken from a questionnaire handed over to participant. The questionnaire had in it 30 questions, 30 items for the participant to answer and give opinion. And the participant were given an options of selection from 1 to 5 based on the 5-point Likert scale. 5 indicates strongly agree and 1 indicates strongly disagree. A value of 4 indicates agreeing, and a value of 2 means disagreeing, and a value of 3 neutral. So each participant responded by selecting one of the one from 1 to 5 selection option in answering each item or question to give their opinion. And to count how many of the participant showed agreement or were agreeing with the question or giving an opinion showing agreement, I'm going to combine the agreeing option and strongly agreeing option by counting the responses from the participant who shown agreeing and strongly agreeing, i.e. a value of 4 and a value of 5. And the way to do that in Excel is to use the COUNTIF command or function. And to do that, first of all, we need to generate a label for a column, and I'm going to call it agree. As in this agree column, we're going to count for each cases or each items the responses from the participant who had shown a value of 4 or 5 on Likert scale. And then in the cell below, going to insert the equal sign and then type count and then select the COUNTIF command or function. The COUNTIF command will count certain values within a cases or within a question using certain criteria. In this case, we only want to count from a case or from an item the value of 4 and 5. And the way to do that is first to set the range for the data. And the range for the data is the response from the participant 1 to 30. And then after that, insert the comma. And since we are only interested in counting only from this case values of 4 and 5, then we need first to insert double hyphen. Then we need to count only those who are equal to or greater than 4. So greater, equal, 4, and then insert double hyphen. So what does this mean? Saying is that the software will counts only the values of 4 and greater, i.e. 4 and 5. If we close the bracket and hit the enter key, a value of 19 is inserted here. What does this value mean? It says that there are 19 responses out of 30 that they were agreeing with the question or the item, and they were giving an agreement opinion. To auto calculate and auto fill the value for the rest of the items or cases, just hold, drag, and then toward the end and then release. The software will auto fill and auto calculate the agree value by counting the responses from those 30 participants. So we can see here there is a variation of responses for each item. If we are interested in counting the number of participants who had shown disagreeing or strongly disagreeing, again we're going to use the count of command. So in the next cell I'm going to type disagree, and we will do the same in the cell below, insert equal, type count. Once you've selected the count F, again we're going to repeat what we have done for the agreement calculation. So we're going to select the range, in this case for the participant, from 1 to 30, and then I'm going to put insert a comma, and then after the comma 2 hyphens, and then since we are here want to select those who were disagreeing or strongly disagreeing, i.e. values of 1 and 2. So we're going to insert the less than or equal to, and then insert the 2 hyphens, and then close the bracket. So what this command is instructing the software to only count the values within each, or the value within each cases that have the score of 1 or 2 or less than 2. And if I hit the enter key, a value of 3 is generated. This means that only 3 individuals were disagreeing with this question as they had responded by selecting the score 1 or 2. To auto fill and auto calculate the rest of the count for all the cases or all the items, just select, drag, and then release. Software will generate the value for each items or case counting a value of 1 or 2. As we can see here, some of the participants really had 15 for this item number 16, 15 individuals were disagreeing with this question or this item. Again, similar thing can be done also for counting a value of 3, which is the number of participants who were neutral, who did not give either agreeing, who were not agreeing, or disagreeing. Again, in this cell, type neutral, and we're going to do similar, using similar formula or command. In the cell, insert equal sign, and then type count, and then select the count if function or command, and for the range, select the range from 1 to 30, and then followed by the comma. And since we are here interested in selecting only within cases a value of 3 represents neutral response, so we need to count the number of participants who responded neutrally to the question or the item. So we're going to insert value of 3 and then close the bracket and hit the enter key. A value of 8 is inserted in the cell. This means that 8 participants were neutral for item or question number 1. To autofill and auto-calculate the similar function or command, select, drag, and then release. The Excel will count all the value within cases that have 3 score in it. And as we can see here, there is a variation in the count of the neutral responses by participants. So this is the way to count values within cases in a Likert scale. We could also go ahead and convert these counts into percentage to show what is the percentage of participants who are agreeing or disagreeing or neutral with any of the questions presented to them. And the way to do that, if we can really generate a column here and we call it or a data and label it as agree percentage. And what I'm going to do is to insert an equal sign, then select the value for agree, which is a count, which is 19. So we are going to divide 19 by the total number of the participant, which is 30, and then multiply that by 100 to generate a percentage, which is 63. And we're going to decrease the decimal into 0. So for the first item or questions, 63% of the participants agreed with the or give an agreement opinion on the questions. Again, we could do autofill and auto-calculate the percentage of agreement for all the rest of the cases. And here we can see there is a variation on agreement of participants with each one of these 30th items or questions. And the similar things can be done for disagreeing and neutral. It is possible to calculate the percentage of individuals who are agreeing or disagreeing or neutral. So this is the way to count values within cases in Excel for a data taken from a questionnaire that is based on Likert scale, 5-point Likert scale. Counting values within cases in SPSS in a questionnaire or a survey that is based on a Likert scale. Here in this SPSS data view, I had inserted a data taken from responses of individual participating in a questionnaire that have 30 questions or items to give an opinion on, and I had selected 30 participant responses in this data. The participant had 5 possible responses to specific question or item to select from, based on the 5-point Likert scale from 5 to 1. 5 indicates that a strongly agreeing response, 4 agreeing response, 3 neutral, 2 disagree, and 1 represent strongly disagreeing. So the responses of each participant for each item or question were inserted in the data as a number from 1 to 5. And to count the value or values within each case or cases for this questionnaire, we're going to use the command count values within cases. So if we want to find out how many participants had responded by showing agreement, either strongly agreeing or agreeing to the items or the question, i.e. we need to find a way to count the value of 4 and 5. So thus combining 4 and 5 to find out the number of participants who gave a response as agreeing and strongly agreeing when giving an opinion for an item or question. The way to do that in SPSS is to click on transform and then scroll to count values within cases. A new window will appear, and in that window I'm going to generate a target variable, call it agree. So I'm going to count all the responses from participants who had expressed their agreement or agreeing or strongly agreeing with the question or the item addressed to them. So in the target variable, I'm going to type agree, and then I'm going to select all the variables and transfer them into the box of variables. And the way to do that is click on Control A, and then deselect the ID, transfer the variable into the numeric variables, and in the icon label define values, click on it. A window will appear for counting values within cases, and in this window I'm going to select the range, as I'm going to count the value of 4 and 5 that has been selected by the participant for every individual items. So I'm going to put the range from 4 to 5, and I'm going to press on add and then click on continue, and then click on OK. A new target variable is generated and it is labeled agree, and I'm going to do some editing by clicking on the variable view, reducing the decimal into 0, and reducing the column width into 6 and making the data or the scores within the variable in the center. So the software has calculated and counted the number and the times value 4 and 5 has been selected by participant, and for item number 1, 19 participant out of 30 were agreeing with question or item number 1, and for item number 30, 16 participants were agreeing with the item 30 or question 30. So this is the way to count the value within cases. We could also repeat the same, but instead of counting the responses of agreeing and strongly agreeing, we could count also the disagreeing of responses. And the way to do that is click on transform, select the count value within cases, and then I'm going to change the target into disagree and keep the selection of all variables, and then click on the define values, and in the defined values I'm going to select the range. I'm going first to remove the values to count, and then I'm going to select a range from 1 to 2, as 1 indicates the response of strongly disagreeing, and 2 response of disagreeing. And then click on add to add them into value to count, then click on continue, then click on OK. A new target variable will be generated. I'm going to do a little bit of editing by reducing the decimals, reducing the column width into 6, and keeping the values or the scores in the center of the target variable. As we can see here, 3 participants were disagreeing with and their response was disagreeing for item number 1. For item number 2 or question number 2, 12 participants disagreed and they gave a response of disagreeing. And the same thing for item number 30, as 7 participants showed disagreement with the item when they gave an opinion for the item or the question number 30. So we have counted the value for agreeing and disagreeing. We could also count the value within cases for neutral responses from participants, those who were not disagreeing or agreeing. Again, the way to do that, to click on transform, click on count values within cases, and then I'm going to generate a new target variable, call it neutral, and we are going to keep the same selection of numeric variables. And then in the define values, click on the define values, remove the values to count, and then in the window here I'm going to select the value 3 for neutral, and I'm going to add that into values to count, and then press on continue, and then OK again. A third target variable is generated. Click on variable view, made some editing by reducing the decimal to 0, column width to 6, and making the value or the scores within the center. Again, These variables or data generated, calculated, counted the value for 3 in each case, or the responses for each item. So for item number 1 or question number 1, 8 participants, they responded by selecting a neutral, and for item 2, 9 participants were neutral, and for item 37 participants were neutral. We could also do more calculation on the count and transfer this count into percentage, i.e. calculating the percentage of the participant who had responded to each item or question, whether agreeing or disagreeing or neutral. And the way to do that is to click on transform, use the command or a function of compute variable, and in the compute variable I'm going to generate a target variable, call it agree %, as I'm going to calculate the percentage of the participant who responded by selecting the options of agreeing. And to do that is to type, label the target, and then select the data for agree, drag it into the numeric expression, and then going to divide that by 30, as we have only 30 participants, using this symbol for division, divided by 30, and then multiplied by 100. A new target variable is generated. I'm going to do a few editing, making this 7 and then make it into the center. And as we can see, a new variable is generated, which shows the percentage of the participant who show agreement with the question or the item. For item number 1, 63% of the participants were agreeing. For item number 2, only 30% of participants agreed, and for the item or question number 30, only 53% of the participants responded by agreeing. Again, we could do the same thing for the other values, the other variables. For disagreeing, convert the count into percentage by compute, reset that, and then generate a new target, call it disagree %, and then select the disagree variable, drag it into the numeric expression, divide that by 30, multiply that by 100. Click on OK. A second target is generated for disagreement percentage. Do a few editing on that. Reduce the decimal point into 0. Reduce the width of the column into 7, and make the data or the values within the variables centered. Again, this shows that 10% of the participants were disagreeing with item number 1, and 23% of participants were disagreeing with the question number 30. Could go ahead again and do the percentage for the neutral. Click on compute variable, reset the window here, and then I'm going to call that neutral, generate a new target variable, call it neutral percentage, and then I'm going to select the neutral variable, divide that by 30 and multiply that by 100 and click on OK. Another target variable is generated. I'm going to do some editing, reducing the decimal point to 0, reducing the width of the column to 7, and making the data centered. And thus it is possible now to work out the percentage for each individual responses, as we had divided the responses into agreeing, disagreeing, or neutral, and then calculating the percentage. And for the agreeing, disagreeing, and neutral, and for neutral percentage, we can see that the first item or first case or first question, 27% of participants were neutral. So this is the way to count values within cases in SPSS for data taken from a questionnaire that have 5-point Likert scale, and then converting these counts into percentage to find out the percentage of responses toward specific question or toward giving an opinion on a specific statement